day 881 of the Trump administration, and this is the scene, the indelible pictures from today. Hope Hicks on Capitol Hill to talk with the House Judiciary Committee. Not in public, mind you, only behind closed doors, and not to answer questions. The White House lawyers with her prevented that. But it did make for quite a scene. More than one person watching said she walked as if on a runway, unbothered by questions, unwilling to answer. At one time, as a public servant, she was among the closest people to the President of the United States, representing our country around the globe, paid for by taxpayer dollars. She may well have witnessed obstruction of justice and criminal activity, but that was of no apparent concern to her today. So here now, the former White House Director of Communications.
Hope, did the president obstruct justice? Is the White House letting you answer any questions today?
Have you spoken to the president at all about this testimony?
Why is the White House limiting your testimony so much?
Surrounded by attorneys, her unwillingness to answer questions from the committee was because the administration has said she was, quote, absolutely immune from being compelled to testify about her time as Trump's senior advisor. Some Democrats on the committee dismissed that excuse.
It was so absurd that we would ask questions such as, where is your office located? Objection.
They objected to any question that was posed to Hope Hicks that had to do with anything she observed or did during the course of her employment in the White House. This is an effort of the president to be sure that witnesses do not share valuable information to the committee, to continue in this ongoing cover-up to prevent the American people from knowing the full truth.
On the upside, other Judiciary Committee members said Hicks was able to discuss her time on the Trump campaign. Chairman Jerry Nadler also says he learned a few things as well, but also implied the White House's stance on immunity would be challenged in the courts.
Were you able to learn more about the hush money payment situation?
Let me just say, she answered some of our questions. We learned considerable information, and the White House pleaded a non-existent absolute immunity, and that will not stand.
Trump weighed in on Hope Hicks' testimony tonight during an interview with Fox News.
She's a wonderful person. She's been through hell. They put this young woman through hell. What she's had to pay for legal fees and everything else, that they're allowed to go forward with, interviewing people, having people like Hope Hicks and others having to pay for a new set of lawyers?
Hicks did testify to the special counsel team. Her testimony is cited over 70 times in the Mueller report, including about Trump's reaction to the appointment of Mueller as special counsel in the first place and the effort to explain away the 2016 Trump Tower meeting. Earlier today, FBI veteran Frank Figliuzzi told this network that her roles on Trump's campaign and in the West Wing mean it's more than likely she'll be called to testify again.
Hope Hicks is not going away. You're going to see her called to testify in grand juries in the state of New York, in Manhattan, and she's going to be a player for the next few years, unfortunately or fortunately, on our TV screens.
The push to get Robert Mueller himself to testify before Congress could soon be headed toward a subpoena. Today, House Intelligence Committee Chairman Adam Schiff signaled that Democrats are getting tired of waiting to hear from the special counsel himself.
He's going to have to testify, and he can testify voluntarily or he can testify under subpoena, but it's going to have to happen. I don't think a 2-year investigation of this magnitude, followed by a written report and a 10-minute statement without questions, satisfactorily answers the many, many questions that we have about the investigation. So I also think time and patience are running out on that front.
The Washington Post reports the House Intelligence Committee will hear from one-time Trump business associate Felix Sater. He is set to testify on Friday about his effort to develop Trump Tower Moscow during the 2016 election. Politico writes that Sater's hearing was supposed to be public, but now the committee decided to make it private because of his previous undercover work for the Defense Intelligence Agency on Russia issues. Meanwhile, Speaker Pelosi's latest comments about impeachment are raising questions about the firmness of her opposition. She's now, here's how she responded, when asked if she would consider a congressional censure of Trump as an alternative to impeachment.
I think censure is just a way out. If you're going to go, you got to go. In other words, if the goods are there, you must impeach.
Democratic Congresswoman of Illinois, Jan Schakowsky, who's a member of Pelosi's leadership team, is now backing an impeachment inquiry into Trump. She calls her move, quote, a personal decision on my part. That makes her the call for an inquiry. Now to our leadoff discussion on a Wednesday night. Philip Rucker, Pulitzer Prize-winning White House bureau chief for The Washington Post. Former U.S. Attorney Joyce Vance, who spent 25 years as a federal prosecutor. Here with us in New York, Emily Jane Fox, national correspondent for Vanity Fair, also happens to be the author of Born Trump, Inside America's First Family. Phil Rucker, let's start with the president's call into Fox News tonight. Relitigating 2016, it was about Mueller, it was about Comey, it was about the FBI, about the Clinton campaign. On this night after launching his reelection, this is still apparently, Phil, his go-to.
It sure is, Brian. He is not a president eager to turn the page here. Indeed, he's digging in. He feels under siege, and he said as much in the Fox interview and also at his re-election kickoff rally last night. He said that the 2020 election would be a verdict on the people who are acting in un-American ways to subvert democracy. And by that, he does not mean the Russians. He means Mueller. He means Comey. He means all of the investigators who've been investigating this Russian interference in the election and his campaign and his own possible obstruction of justice. And we're going to see that continue, I think, for some time to come.
Joyce, did Hope Hicks have the legal right to do what she did today, or better said, not do what she didn't say today?
The best way to answer that, Brian, is to say that the answer will come when this case hits the courts. In other words, certainly like any other witness, she can come and assert she doesn't have to answer questions. And then the inquiry that you have is whether the person asking the questions is really serious about getting answers. So we'll now find out whether Congress is serious and whether they intend to ask a federal judge to compel Hope Hicks to answer.
Emily Jane Fox, you have covered Hope Hicks. Why do you think she did this today?
Well, she was legally required to be there. I think that is the main reason why she was there. She is someone who is a very senior member of a public company. It is.
Yeah, tell the folks where she works.
She works at New Fox, which is a company that is run by a Murdoch son. It's a company that is brand new. She's the head of communications there. And there are shareholders who would take issue with the fact that a senior member of this company is being put in this situation and being thrust on the world stage. And if she was not going to comply with a subpoena, which legally requires her to be there, I would imagine that would be of some trouble. Now, doing what she did today is something that I think only would work for the company where she works. It is something that is run by the Murdoch family. It's a company that owns Fox News, and it's a company that hired her knowing that she was potentially going to be in this situation someday. So I think that some of that is baked in, but I think she did the bare minimum of what she was legally required to do while still maintaining her loyalty to the Trump family, which is something that is incredibly important to her, something that is incredibly important to the Trump family. And I think that is a large part of why she didn't go much further than she was required to do today, though that may be challenged, as Joyce just explained.
Yes, and one of the underpinnings of your comments and Joyce's, if the Democrats prevail, Hope Hicks might have a very big decision to make to pick a team here.
I've been racking my brain about this all day of which team she would pick. I did a story about her for Vanity Fair at the end of last year, starting her new life in Los Angeles. She has a very big job. She was just coming off of another very big job. It's hard for me to see someone who is 30 years old choosing to tie themselves to something like the Trump Organization, something like the Trump campaign, something like the Trump White House, knowing where this could all head someday. But you have to understand this underlying loyalty she had to the Trump family. It is so strong, it defies all logic, and so I don't know which way it would go at the end of the day.
The president calls her Hopi.
Hopi.
This would be a big decision for Hopi and would test exactly the strength of the relationship you're trying to come up with the terms to describe.
Well, I watched it up close with Michael Cohen, who was someone who was incredibly loyal to him as well. At the end of the day, the president threw Michael Cohen under the bus, or at least that's how Michael Cohen felt. And so that is what turned Cohen away and turned him from this guy who told me that he would take a bullet for the president to someone who ended up cooperating in investigations against him. It's harder for me to see the president turning on Hope Hicks. It's not impossible, and I think stranger things have happened. And I think that may be where you see some tension and movement down the road.
Joyce Vance, a snarky person would say perhaps all the Democrats' hearing rooms are getting painted and they can't have public hearings anymore. Everybody's behind closed doors. Well, the latest on Friday of this week will be Mr. Sater. He of attempted Trump Tower Moscow fame, a business associate of Mr. Trump et al. What kind of things can they ask him and learn from him potentially?
Well, Sater will have a lot to say about the relationship, the business relationships that he had with both Michael Cohen and with the president. He can talk about the plans to build Trump Tower in Moscow. And the reason in his case for the closed hearing is because he did intelligence work, he worked with DNI, and much of what he would have to say would be inappropriate in a public setting. And so as much as I think we're all eager to hear public testimony, in this case, as opposed to in the case of Hope Hicks, there seems to be a really good reason to spend some time behind closed doors. With Hicks, the decision to go in closed doors looks really much more like it was an effort to bring someone who wasn't really certain she wanted to testify in front of the House to at least set up that baseline where she would refuse to answer questions so the Congress could go on its way and get this decided by a judge. I see that as two very different situations in terms of why they were held behind closed doors.
And Joyce, this may call for a judgment on your part, but where Mr. Mueller is concerned, is his testimony another potential case for the Democrats of be careful what you wish for? And can you imagine Bob Mueller saying, public, absolutely, bring all the cameras in, let's do it on live television, versus going behind closed doors?
Mueller's already made his feelings about public testimony clear. He's not a fan. But by the same token, he's delivered his report and told us that the report speaks for itself. But the report can't really speak to us because about 10% of it is redacted. You know, the problem for Mueller is that he lives a little bit at the crossroads of this more traditional era where prosecutors did not come forward, did not speak in public, only tried their cases in courtrooms, and the reality of this extraordinarily unusual situation where the president can't be charged, where there continue to be questions about whether or not Mueller was permitted to proceed with his investigation unimpeded. He himself wrote a letter to Bill Barr just days after the report was released, questioning the Attorney General's veracity, in essence, saying that when he characterized the report in public, that Mueller was left with concerns about the context, the nature, the substance, how Barr characterized all those aspects of the report. He may ultimately have to testify in public here, whether he wants to or not.
Hey there, I'm Chris Hayes from MSNBC. Thanks for watching MSNBC on YouTube. If you want to keep up to date with the videos we're putting out, you can click subscribe just below me or click over on this list to see lots of other great videos.